Then what else is there?
Now it's time for Money Talks. Money Talk.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It's a pleasure to be here live with you guys today. Want to say Happy New Year to everybody. I'm your host, Atia Harris, with Money Talk. All the other hosts are in the studio. We have DJ Bostic. What's going on, DJ?
What's going on? As always, root to the bruh.
We all seeing another year, right?
That's it.
Yes, indeed.
That's it. Absolutely.
All right, we got Ed Marsh, the insurance guy.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? Let's get ready to get financially secure with your insurance and your financial and retirement needs.
Okay, so we want to shout out to Vinroy, and our new addition to the show, we have Marvin Wilson live in the studio.
That's what's up. This is Meta Marvin. Call me Meta Marvin around these woods.
So for those of you tuning in for the first time, this show is Money Talk, and it's all things financial from every different aspect that you can think of. If finances is related to it, which is related to mostly everything, then these are the type of things that we discuss on this show so that we can enhance the lives of you and your family. It's awesome information that we have gone in corporate America and we pulled out in among other sources as well, business owners, entrepreneurs, and then we bring it to you so that you could take it and utilize this information and go to the next level. We do have a special guest today here on the program, and Marvin is our main interviewer. We may have some off questions for our guest. We have Dr. Umar Johnson. You want to give him an introduction?
Oh, yes. Yeah, happy to have Dr. Umar Johnson. I got a call a couple days ago and said that he was going to be in the area in the state of North Carolina, I think in the Durham area. And it's always a pleasure to bring some fearless brother in the, on the radio station to get a little bit of education on where we're going and his insights on where we are as a people. So, Dr. Umar, glad to have you on the show, brother.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be with you.
All right.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the program here today. And everyone in the studio is success driven, and we want to kind of extend that vibe and energy to others. So maybe you can help us out with some statistics of what might be going on with success in the African American community and how we may be able to overcome some of the challenges.
Well, coming from the perspective of an educator and a psychologist, I think that when we talk about success for African Americans, it begins with proper education. And one of the biggest problems I have with the American public, even private school system, is that it does not introduce our children into the laws of money. And so African Americans are largely kept away from understanding the different alternative revenues to wealth besides college education. So our children are consistently fed a misinformation diet that suggests the only way you can get successful is by going through college. And I'm not against college, obviously. I host the Black College and Consciousness Tour every summer.
That's right.
We take 11 to 17-year-olds to HBCUs. However, we do have to recognize that the top 1% richest people in the world don't go to work. And even when we look at the richest Americans, most of them do not have a college education.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things that we push on this program is even if an individual has like W-2 employment, they need to have a business set up on the side to get all the perks that come along with that, or just work towards entrepreneurship all together. But it seems to be a fear when you talk to someone about commission-based living, which all of us in this studio are commission-based living type individuals. People, they seem to get scared. They want that fixed income. You know, they're scared to jump out there into the water. What would you say to them?
Well, if you look at our history as a people in this country, it was based in a tradition where we were always dependent, quote unquote, on the system to provide for our needs. In slavery, we were dependent upon the system. Now, coming out of slavery up into the civil rights era, you did have a long tradition of independent African business and entrepreneurs. But then, beginning in the 70s, when they deindustrialized the inner city, taking out the factories as well as taking out the industrial building trade programs in the high school, that recreated that slavery-type dependence on the system. So it's not a part of our culture to be self-employed. It's not a part of Black culture. It's foreign to us. And because it's foreign to us, a lot of us are afraid to step out into that uncharted water.
Yeah, I have one question for you. My name is Edward Marsh. Everybody knows me as Ed urban farmer. One of the things is you're trying to raise money for a school. And if you can talk a little bit about that, because I am in the school system here, and you're exactly right about educating our children. Can you elaborate on how the stage that you're on right now about trying to take over a school that was pretty much like a HBCU but got taken over?
Yes, sir. We were originally interested in the St. Paul's College, an HBCU in the southern part of Virginia. However, that property just sold to a land developer a couple weeks ago, and it looks like they're going to be tearing most of the college down, which is unfortunate because many of our HBCUs that have been closed and are scheduled to be closed, they're not just being taken over and converted into other types of educational institutions. They're being torn down. So it's not just the HBCU that's being taken away from us, but it's the whole history. So 100 years from now, people wouldn't even know that some of those schools once existed. Now, with the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy that I'm trying to build, that school is going to be based on the principles of Pan-Africanism and international economics. So we will have a finance curriculum where children know how to do their own taxes. By the time they finish the 9th grade, they will have their own business plan. By the time they finish the 10th, they will understand real estate thoroughly. By the time they've done the 11th, they will be investing on the stock market. By the time they graduate, we have over 2 million African Americans with master's and doctorate degrees who cannot find work. So we have to rethink this whole philosophy of sending everybody to college after graduation.
Okay, talking about we're going to piggyback on our schools. Dr. Umar, of course, Charlotte has been cited for a lot of, we've had some run-ins, of course, with police brutality and things like that. But I want to get into what's coming to Charlotte here in the next 30 days. And I've sort of pride myself. I'm sort of the black ticket master here in Charlotte. I've always tried to influence our black entrepreneurs of owning our own entities and having our own venues and things like that, so we can really be able to possess the type of talents and bring people in, and that's going to be a reflection of our culture. So CIAA, of course, 17 HBCUs come into Charlotte for the last week of February. The city grosses probably $70 million, and we're not touching none of it. Could you expound on that and give us some insight on how this, what's going on, or what do you see? I
think it's about what we need to be doing differently.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, a couple things on that. Number one, it's going to be difficult to understand black spending habits without understanding the black psychology of self-defeatism. We are a people who do not believe in delaying gratification. We want reward now. That's another reason why you don't see more of us in business, because as you know, it may take a couple years before you begin to turn a profit, depending on the type of business that you start. Black people, collectively, we're not interested in the long-term outcome, because our existence in this country has always been so unpredictable that the average African American would think twice about investing in something that has a big return, even if it's down the road, because they don't know if they're going to be around down the road. So when you're living for today, when you live in an emergency-based culture of scarcity, you never plan long enough. That's why we don't plan for our children, our grandchildren. Right. We basically just look out for our best interest. But if I were in control of the way Black America did business, none of these functions, these conferences, these celebrations, the CIAAs, including the NAACP conference, the Urban League conference, the Black Sorority and Fraternity conferences, all of these things need to be held in a city where African Americans control a greater proportion of the types of venues that will be providing these services, or they need to flat out be held on college campuses. We have some HBCUs that have very large campuses. Howard University, for example, where you can put the whole CIAA there. Now, of course, it may spill over. That's okay, but the bulk of the operation is on a black platform where we can benefit from the finance. It makes no sense for the fraternities and the sororities to keep on having these these conventions that bring in $10-20 million for a weekend, and you're doing it at the Hilton and at the Radisson and at the Sheraton, when we got HBCUs that are closing down for lack of revenue. Why are we not having these conferences at HBCUs?
Well, that's a great question, but I want to know if you can break down the psychology around that, because it just absolutely makes no sense. You know, you have a lot of people that feel like we have issues with working together collectively as a team. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I feel like America somewhat is the land of opportunity. You could go from 0 to 100, you know, especially here in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a great climate for business, starting business and small business. You know, we can't just put everything on the other side. What do we need to do to adjust ourselves? And also, you mentioned about, you know, the mindset of leaving a legacy to your children, which we preach here all the time on the show. The fact that there's different policies and products out here. That's why we have the insurance guy here on the show, to let people know that even if you're broke, the next generation doesn't have to be, by you putting just certain measures, policies in place. You know, so can you just kind of address this? What's the psychology? Because it's opportunity out there for everybody, but for some reason we don't seem to be taking it, even when we're educated on it.
On the one hand, our spending is a reflection of our lack of faith in our ability to produce. When we talk about that delay of gratification, Black people shop not because they need things, but because by having things, they think it makes them feel better about themselves. So you have to look at the role that self-esteem for us plays in our spending habits. The reason we have to have the most expensive things, that goes all the way back to the days of slavery. People who never have actually realized true freedom and true equality love to surround themselves with the symbols of that equality. So in other words, after I get my doctorate degree, I'm going to move out into a white suburb. I'll never be treated the equal of a white man with a doctorate degree. I'll never earn the equal of a white man with a doctorate degree. But I will, by living in his neighborhood, it gives me a sense of psychological equality. In 2016, Black people purchased 3 times the amount of Mercedes-Benzes as white people, but yet white people own 3 times the wealth of African Americans. Why are we so crazy over Mercedes-Benzes? Because having a Mercedes-Benz is a status symbol that gives us a psychological feeling of success and equality. And as a people, we have fallen for the symbols as opposed to the substance of true equality. Now, when you look at Black business, couple things. Number one, I think Black businesses do a horrible job of customer service. We do a horrible job of customer service. You can count on one hand the amount of Black businesses you know that have a customer service number or a customer service email, or that sends their customers a birthday card, send them things for shopping, that has a frequent shopping program. We don't treat Black customers well. Number two, marketing. Black businesses don't do a good job of marketing to Black customers. We work under the assumption that Black people are going to and should support us just because we're Black. Well, that's not going to cut it. Why? Because since we have a self-hate issue, you actually have to market to Black people more than you market to other people, because we still believe the white man's ice is colder. And then number three, Black businesses need to unite with each other. There's too much competition amongst Black businesses. We're already outnumbered. We're already out-resourced. The last thing we can afford to do is compete with each other. If you have a certain amount of people in the insurance industry, if you have a certain amount of people in the hair care industry, if you have a certain amount of people in the child care industry, come together and organize. That's why they have the Korean Business Association. That's why they have the Jewish Business Association. That's why they have the Arab Business Association. That's why you have mergers taking place every day in corporate America, because you can make more together than you ever could competing with each other.
Next question. Okay, Dr. Hassan, one of the questions I have, this is DJ Bostic, Business Credit. One of the things that I often say on the show is that one of the problems we have in the African American community is that we no longer disseminate information to each other. And you think about in times past, that's how we got the majority of all the information that was going on, whether it was on plantations or back roads. Do you feel that that is one of the issues that we're facing right now? We are no longer disseminating information to help our brothers out?
I totally agree with you, and I would say to that, I think the Black press, I think Black media has to really do a self-assessment, because when you look at the quality of Black media, let's go back to the 1920s all the way up to now. We're almost to 2020, 100 years. When you look at the first 50 years of black media in the 20th century, it was all about the issues that mattered to black. They dealt with the racism.
That's
they
right.
dealt with the schools, the mass incarceration, the infant mortality rate of black women, the joblessness. It was always relevant information. When you look at black media today, even our major periodicals, our major magazines, our major newspapers, they're chasing nothing but gossip and sensationalism.
That's right.
It's amazing when I pick up a newspaper and I don't see anything of substance. It's all about Serena's marrying a white guy, or, who's
That's
playing
right.
in the Super Bowl, or who's cheating with whose wife in Hollywood, or Kanye West being in a psychiatric institute. And it's a shame, but you often have to read white periodicals to get real information. You got to piece through the
That's
racism,
true.
but at least you get real information. Black media is caught up in this new social networking generation when all they're chasing is the latest sensationalism stream or latest stream of gossip. And it's hurting us because we have so many problems going on. We can afford to be wasting time on useless gossip.
That kind of just sparked a thought in my mind. Just a question I want to ask. Me personally, I listen, to all different types of music from diverse background of artists. And it just seems to me, I noticed that the music that's geared toward the African American community always has low morals in the music. Majority of the time, you might get a couple of, songs of decency, and then everything else is about a stripper on a pole or throwing money up, worshiping money, and all kind of stuff like that. But if I turn to another channel, it's the opposite. You might have majority songs of talking about being married, loving this woman and being married forever. And you might just have a couple of songs that reflect low morals. Do you think that the media is used as a tool of brainwashing?
Oh, without question. I definitely believe that. And I also think that our artists are less socially conscious than they have ever been. If you look at the history of black music in America, even going back to slavery up until now, our art always had a political edge to it. Our art not only reflected our reality, it informed our reality, which is to say that it didn't just regurgitate what we were doing wrong. It also pointed us in the direction of what we needed to start doing right. So when I hear these hip-hop artists talk about, you can't blame me for the content of my lyrics because I'm only reflecting the reality that I grew up with, that's an excuse. Why? Because artists have a bi-directional relationship with the culture that they represent, which is to say, yes, you do reflect the reality of the people, but at the same time, as an artist, you have the ability to project the reality of the people and take us to the next level. And you don't see that all across the genre. As you said, from hip-hop to R&B to jazz, all across the genre. Well, I'll pull jazz out of that, but especially hip-hop and R&B, our two most popular art forms, it's nothing but sex, violence, going to jail, and killing other black men. I mean, every rap song got the same four elements. It doesn't matter who the rapper is, what style he espouses, what city he comes from. He's talking about exploiting black women sexually, conspicuous consumption, buying everything white folks make with big labels on it, going to jail, and killing other black men. So gangster rap today has largely become the advertising vehicle that's going to send a lot of our sons to jail.
Well, I want to look at talking about media, and I don't pay too much attention to it, but what are your thoughts in closing, Dr. Umar? Of course, with the president-elect, Donald Trump, whatever, he's been a catalyst of definitely, he's bringing a lot of Steve Harveys, and I've seen a lot of, I forgot his name, Roy, whatever. It's a couple people, that's very socially active in our media right now that, Donald Trump is, sort of, coming up and I guess putting pieces to his team. What is your thoughts about that? And us as a people, the pros and cons with Donald Trump, what do you see as far as looking as being advantageous for us to be able to look at it from, is this guy just no business in general, or is this guy is trying to be the best president that we know?
It's the Bill Clinton strategy.
Yeah.
And what I mean by it's the Bill Clinton strategy, Bill Clinton surrounded himself with African Americans. He put a lot of them on his cabinet.
That's right.
He had a lot of conversations on race, while at the same time he was doing that, he was giving us probably the most racist crime bill that America has seen since the days of Reconstruction. So that is a very old technique, strategically done, that basically says, look like you're caring about the people, that you're trying to actually oppress. Donald Trump does not have an agenda to help African Americans. For that fact, no president has ever had an agenda to help African Americans. And I think we really need to really be careful about what he has coming down the pike. One decision he's made already is Secretary of Education. It's Betsy DeVos, who is basically the state of Michigan's charter school queen. She's also a voucher queen. She's going to continue this move to eliminate public education. And we need to be very, very prepared for this, because if they shut down public education as mandatory, because there is no constitutional right to learn. You only have a state right. Constitution doesn't give you a right to learn. But with her voucher program, along with the charter school movement, I think in our lifetime, we will see a situation where public schools will no longer exist, and the few that do exist, you're going to have to afford them in order for your child to go. We're going back to the days of when you had to pay for your child to get an education.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, I tell you what, that's an eye opener. I tell you. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show, Dr. Umar. We're definitely going to be reaching out. Definitely want to give you a chance to come here. And I know you've been here a few times in the past, but definitely give you a bigger platform, because we definitely needing it here. I think this is a good chance for our community to really come up with some good men like yourself to come here and really give us some some just proven evidence and statistics that, what we're doing has got to change,
sure.
And the men's got to step up in our community, not only as fathers, but businessmen, and leaving legacies for our children. So I'm glad to have you on the show, and we definitely going to have you back real soon.
I appreciate that, my brother. And let me just remind your listeners that I'll be in Durham Tuesday night, January the 17th. I'll be at the Hayti Heritage Center, 804 Old Fayetteville Road. Doors open up at 4, program from 6 to 8, and I'll be signing copies of my book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, from 8 until 10. So that's Tuesday the 17th. My first visit to Durham in 14 years. And as far as Charlotte goes, I've been looking for a venue that I could rent to do my return lecture to Charlotte. So if you guys have any leads on locations that I could rent that could hold about 500
Well, Dr. Umar, I have a couple venues here. We can go from 2,000, brother. We got 500, and we can have them down to 50, and have accessibility to that. And actually, I had a call from your publicist, Mrs. Jones. So she definitely had my contact, and I'll be more than happy to work with you, brother. Just give me a call.
Appreciate it. Will do. Thank you.
All right. Well, we want to thank him so much for coming on the program. You guys are listening to Money Talk. We're going to elaborate on this when we come back from the commercial break, because he brought us some key issues that we really need to ponder on. Keep it locked right here, 103.3.
They shutting a lot of them down. They just throwing them away.
Well, it's our fault internally somewhere. We can't just blame the people. That's what I'm trying to say. What are we doing wrong? Yeah. What do we need to be doing different? Just like I had a homeboy that worked in the men's warehouse out in South Park. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm talking about by South Park Mall. And they're sitting here looking at statistics of urban purchases. Mm-hmm. And over in the hood on Freedom Drive, the Freedom Drive hood store is making more money than the South Park Mall men's warehouse. You know what I'm saying? Because that's over in the urban community. They over there buying up all the Jordans, all the clothes and everything. Right. So, like the man said, you just want to spend your money. You don't want to invest your money. You don't want to think about anybody else. You got to think about, the next generation. You got people that's planning 3 and 4 generations down.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, you got people that's planning 3 and 4 generations down. Mm-hmm. And we got to get in the mindset to even plan just 1 generation down.
Right.
Yeah, he's been collecting money for that for about 4 or 5 years. We live? And he just lost it.
Okay, so what's your comments on that? Marvin, you have venues, you do the tickets. Kind of explain that to the people.
Yeah, well, the thing is what I was, shooting out to Dr. Umar. I mean.